Okay, what is up there, YouTube? This is J-Man Time, and today I have yet another rare experimental weapon, this time from the mid to late 1980s. This weapon system here was a British sci-fi weapon, or sci-fi infantry weapon, that was something that you would probably see in an episode of Doctor Who. And this weapon system here was one of the experimental weapons developed by the British during the Cold War era that was slated to be adopted by the year 2000. And that weapon system is the Futuristic Scicon PDW, or the Scicon Individual Weapon System. This was a concept PDW based weapon system, or personal defense weapons concept, that was developed by the British Scicon Ltd back in the year of 1984 to 1995. Now, the Scicon was a two-barreled weapon system that was designed to be the replacement for the British L85 series bullpup assault rifles that are still being used by these British Armed Forces today as of this year 2024-2025. Now, back in the 1980s, the Scicon Ltd company wanted to develop a futuristic, all-encompassing weapon system that combined both a rifle with a PDW and a grenade launcher all in one small package. This weapon system here was a 4.7mm caseless assault rifle type PDW personal defense weapon that was merged with either a 10 or 30mm grenade launching system, over-barreled grenade launching system. The weapon system also was fitted with an offset conventional scope and handle, and this weapon system here was designed to be lighter than the L85 series of bullpup rifles. It was first featured in the Jane's Defense Weekly Volume 23 in June of 1984, titled The Infantryman 2000, and this was meant to be the futuristic image of what British soldiers or special forces would look like by the year 2000, with this weapon system, the Scicon, being the standard issued specialist weapon used by those forces. Now again, this experimental weapon was chambered for an experimental 4.7mm caseless cartridge, and also had either a 10mm or 30mm grenade launcher. Its feed system or magazine capacity of the feed system is unknown, but its maximum combat range was stated to be around 400 meters. The Scicon, again, was meant to be the most advanced, futuristic sci-fi British combat weapon system that was supposed to be a standard issued weapon for either the standard British Armed Forces or the British Special Forces by the year 2000. Now, the project actually lasted for a very long time, and it started in 1984 and didn't end to around 1995. At least that's the last time I've seen any updates for this weapon system. And the weapons project was basically canceled because it was kind of seen as too unrealistic, and the Scicon Ltd company could only manufacture just 2 prototypes along with the 2 PR mock-ups you see here on screen. Now, it's unknown if these prototypes were ever tested by the British Armed Forces, but if they were, I could see them probably rejecting it for one major reason, and that is the caliber. The 4.7mm caseless round is not a cartridge that the British would ever adopt. In fact, not even the Americans or NATO would adopt this cartridge. All NATO standard weapons, even back in the 1980s and 90s, all had to be chambered for either the 5.56 or the 7.62. And only in recent decades, since the early 2000s, have newer cartridges like the 6.5mm Grendel been accepted for NATO standard weapons. So back in the 80s and 90s, this 4.7mm caseless round was never going to be accepted at all. So unless this weapon system was chambered for the standard 5.56 or 7.62 by 51, it was never going to be accepted just on that alone. A second reason it might have been rejected or abandoned is that underbarrel grenade launcher. It fired an experimental 10 or 30mm grenade launcher shell or round. Now, the NATO standard is the 40 by 46mm grenade launcher round, used by the British, the Americans, and pretty much most NATO countries, with the exception of NATO countries still using older Soviet weapons like the ASG-17 30mm grenade launcher, for example. Just those 2 calibers alone would have been enough for this weapon system to be rejected. On top of that, this is pretty much a bullpup weapon system. Now, the British do have bullpup weapons, so I can see it being accepted as a bullpup if it were chambered for the 5.56 and had a 40mm grenade launcher. But as a NATO standard weapon or as a potential weapon to be exported to NATO countries, other countries outside of the UK and Austria would have rejected this weapon system. So this weapon system had too many, design issues for it to be taken serious by the British Armed Forces and by other NATO countries that buy British weaponry. And that's really about it. There's not much information on this weapon system. It is just a very advanced looking and very sci-fi looking British bullpup PDW type assault rifle grenade launcher combination weapon system from the mid to late 80s and early 90s. The Scicon PDW individual weapon system by the Scicon Ltd company. What do you all think of this futuristic weapon? Do you think this weapon was wasted potential? I think it kind of was wasted potential. I feel like if the British had come up with a 5.56 version, it probably would have been accepted. But that's just me. So what do you all think of this? Please tell me in the comment section below. And until next time, this was J-Man Time signing off.